the secret drink nobody talks about. There is a drink that kept millions of people alive in the harshest place on earth. No rivers, no lakes, no rain for months, and yet entire families survived, entire tribes survived, entire empires survived. Because of one thing, it wasn't water. For thousands of years, this drink was almost a secret. Outsiders didn't understand it. Some even feared it, and for a long time, modern science refused to even study it seriously. But here's the strange part. This same drink would later connect to a shocking celebrity story, a downfall that stunned an entire wellness movement in America. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that drink is, why it was hidden from the modern world for so long, and what really happened to the person whose life became tangled with it. So stay with me, because this story starts in the desert, but it doesn't end there. Long before phones, before cars, before cities as we know them, there was only sand. Miles and miles of it. No shade, no shelter, and temperatures that could kill a person in hours. But one animal survived there, the camel. And one thing from that animal changed everything. Its milk. Ancient tribes didn't just drink it to survive. Old writings describe it almost like medicine. People believed it could heal, people believed it could protect. But here's where it gets strange. Centuries later, that same belief would cause confusion, even controversy, in a world far away from the desert. A world you know very well. We'll get there. But first, you need to understand how powerful this drink became and how far it traveled. Picture massive camel caravans stretching for miles across the desert, traders carrying silk, salt, and spices across thousands of dangerous miles. None of it would have been possible without camel milk. It kept the animals alive, it kept the traders alive. Without it, some of the greatest trade routes in human history might have simply collapsed. Kings and warlords understood this. Some of them guarded their camel herds like treasure chests, more valuable, some say, than gold itself. And one ruler in particular held a secret about his herd, a secret historians still argue about today. We're not ready to reveal it yet. Because first, you need to see what happened when this desert treasure finally reached the Western world, and why it was met with fear instead of curiosity. When early European travelers first saw camel milk, they didn't know what to make of it. Some wrote about it with confusion, some with suspicion. A few even called it strange, almost unnatural. For centuries, camel milk stayed locked out of Western culture completely. Ignored in some places, dismissed by early science. It was as if something about it made people uncomfortable. But that discomfort didn't disappear. It went quiet. And decades later, it would resurface in a very different world. A world of wellness retreats, alternative medicine, and one particular movement in America that would change everything. That movement would eventually connect this ancient drink to a story. For most of modern history, scientists barely looked at camel milk at all. Western researchers were busy studying cow's milk. It was familiar, it was easy. Camel milk sat forgotten on the sidelines. Then, something changed. Researchers found something unusual inside camel milk. Something that didn't match any other milk on Earth. Something that made them stop and look closer. They wouldn't say much about it publicly at first, but this quiet discovery would eventually pull camel milk into headlines, wellness trends, and even into the private world of a very famous name. A name whose story would end in mystery. Keep watching, because the next part of this story is where things start to turn dark. Here's what researchers found. In simple terms, camel milk contains certain proteins that cow's milk simply doesn't have. Nothing wild, nothing exaggerated, just different. Unique, unusual enough to catch attention. This one discovery quietly shifted camel milk from strange desert drink to subject worth studying. Health circles took notice first, then alternative medicine communities. Then, slowly, the wellness world in America. And that's where our story takes its darkest turn. Because in the 70s and 80s, camel milk found its way into a very specific corner of American culture, a world of retreats, gurus, and quiet experiments most people never heard about. One person from that world would later become impossible to forget. By the time camel milk reached American shores, it felt almost forbidden. Health food stores whispered about it, alternative medicine circles tested it quietly. Most Americans who tried it for the first time were shocked by the taste, the texture, the unfamiliar strangeness of it all. But a small group didn't care about strange wellness communities in the 70s and 80s were searching for anything different, anything that promised something modern medicine couldn't. Camel milk fit perfectly into that search, and inside one of these communities, a story began. A story involving a public figure who would later vanish from the spotlight completely. No one saw it coming. And what happened to them still raises questions today. Picture the wellness world of the 70s and 90s. Commune retreats. Charismatic leaders promising healing the mainstream world couldn't offer. Rare ingredients like camel milk became part of that hidden culture, whispered about, tried quietly, rarely discussed publicly. This world had its own rules, its own secrets, and its own consequences. Inside one of these communities, a well-known figure grew deeply connected to this lifestyle. Publicly, they seemed confident, healthy, almost untouchable. Privately, something was shifting, and then, without warning, they disappeared from public life. No big announcement, no clear explanation, just silence. That silence is where our next chapter begins. This person had once been admired, trusted, watched by thousands. They spoke openly about alternative health, about natural healing, about drinks like camel milk long before it was trendy. But somewhere along the way, their public image began to change. Slowly at first, then faster. Interviews became rare, public appearances stopped. Old friends went quiet when asked about them. Something had happened. Something serious enough to end a very public chapter of their life. We're not going to guess. We're not going to assume. We're only going to show you what's actually documented, piece by piece, starting right now. Here's what we do know, based on documented history. The wellness movements of that era weren't always what they appeared to be. Behind some retreats and health communities were real financial troubles, legal disputes, and broken trust. Public figures connected to these movements often paid the price, sometimes fairly, sometimes not. This particular downfall wasn't caused by camel milk itself, but it happened in the very same world where camel milk quietly lived, a world of big promises and even bigger consequences. After the fall, public interest in these alternative wellness circles dropped sharply, and camel milk once again faded into the background, but it wouldn't stay forgotten for long. After the dust settled, something interesting happened. Camel milk didn't disappear completely. It just went quiet, waiting in the background while the world moved on. Years passed. New researchers came along, people with no connection to the old wellness world, no interest in old scandals, just curiosity. They looked at camel milk with fresh eyes, clean data, real science, and slowly, camel milk started making its way back into conversations. Not through gurus this time, through nutrition labs, farms, and small businesses willing to try something different. The old mystery hadn't been solved, but a new chapter was beginning. And this one would look nothing like the last. By the 2000s, camel milk found a new home in America. Small farms began raising camels specifically for milk. Health-conscious shoppers started asking questions. Specialty stores slowly added it to their shelves. It wasn't cheap. In fact, camel milk remains one of the most expensive milks in the world today, sometimes costing far more than regular milk per bottle. That price alone made people curious. Why would something so simple cost so much? The answer involves rare camels, small herds, and a process far more complicated than most people realize. And once people understood that, camel milk stopped feeling strange. It started feeling special. So what does modern science actually say about camel milk today? Researchers have found it contains different nutrients compared to cow's milk, along with lower fat content in some cases. Certain communities have used it for generations as part of their traditional diet, but it's not a miracle drink. Scientists are careful to say more research is still needed before making big health claims. Still, interest keeps growing. Universities are studying it. Companies are investing in it. Health-conscious Americans are trying it for the first time decades after it was almost forgotten completely. The ancient desert drink had officially re-entered modern life, but its strangest chapter was still connected to the past. Now here's something most people don't expect. This story isn't just about faraway deserts. It's happening right here in America too. Across states like Missouri, Texas, and Wisconsin, small American farmers started raising camels, not for shows, not for zoos, but for milk. Real families running real farms, betting everything on a drink most of their neighbors had never even heard of. Why would American farmers take that risks? Because demand was quietly growing. Health-conscious families across the US started searching for alternatives to regular milk. Parents of kids with allergies, people chasing better digestion, wellness communities looking for something different. Slowly, camel milk stopped being a strange desert story and became an American business. Bottles started appearing in specialty stores from California to New York, and that raises a bigger question. If this drink was ignored for so long, why is it suddenly showing up in your own backyard? Stay with me, because the answer connects to everything we've uncovered so far. Think back to where we started. A desert, no water, no hope of survival, except for one animal and one drink. That same drink traveled through empires, trade routes, forbidden territories, and quiet wellness communities in America, touched the life of a public figure whose story ended in mystery. It disappeared for years, only to return through science, small farms, and curious new generations. Every piece of this story, the ancient trade routes, the forgotten science, the wellness world, downfall, leads back to one simple thing. A drink most people never think twice about. But now you understand what it truly represents. Survival, secrecy, and a history far bigger than anyone expected. Camel Milk's story didn't end in the desert. It reached wellness influencers chasing miracle cures, including Belle Gibson, whose fake cancer-healing empire collapsed in 2015 when the world learned it was all a lie. That scandal shook the alternative health industry to its core. But camel milk itself survived the wreckage. Today, real science backs its unique nutrition. No fraud, no fantasy. From ancient nomads to desert survival to modern kitchens, camel milk's history proves some truths outlast even the biggest deception. If this shocked you, subscribe. More hidden history is coming.